So this is an overview of how it is you can work with your organization to sort of surface and capture what their strategic priorities are. Now, strategy is about prioritizing the many actions which are available to the organization. Now, we're going to provide you with some simple Excel tools to help surface what those look like. But at the end of the day, this is a conversation amongst the leadership team that surface the true priorities. So over the next couple of slides, we'll outline a bunch of weighting guidelines, what the weighting tool looks like, and your output is going to be a list of strategic objectives from the previous step and the weightings surfaced in this step. So an organization's highest risks are always associated with the highest weighted strategic objectives. Let's take a simple example. If you think of a middle school child's scores in, say, math versus art, if you think math is more important to their success in society, then that's a more important objective, your math score versus your art score in that example. Which means risks associated with that high math score are more important to you than risks associated with the art score. So based on the strategy, you can begin to identify where the risks are, which is why inside your organization we have to understand your strategic priorities to help your leadership team identify where your risks are. Now, to do this, we've learned that there are sort of some factors that influence the weighting. First, we need to talk about the guidelines in weighting. So weighting or emphasis doesn't mean how many people or money or even managerial time is spent on any one of those strategic objectives. It's kind of a combination of them. Secondly, the weighting of the objectives needs to be done for the overall organization that you're assessing. So if it's the corporate risk scorecard you're building, we're going to be assessing the priorities at the corporate level. But if you're dealing with a department or a region, we'll be dealing with the priorities at those levels. So the strategy weightings as they cascade down shift a bit. You need to make sure that you're considering the priorities for the area that we're scorecarding. Thirdly, you need to agree on what period of time you're assessing risks over. So if it's the next 12 months, we're going to be setting the priorities over 12 months. And then finally, it's our opinion that the leader of that area has the final say in setting those weightings. Your leaders were chosen because they have extensive experience and knowledge that enables them to take that leadership role. And they get exposed to other data points and factors that will influence the overall weighting. Now, the weighting itself, we've learned over the years, is really based on three factors. First, how important that strategic objective is. In the example I used before, I'm suggesting that math might have been more important than art in that example. Secondly, how well or poorly the organization is performing in that area. And then finally, how hard that area is to improve. So a high-weighted objective would be associated with an objective that's important, where the organization is performing quite poorly and is quite difficult to improve. So it's that combination of the three elements. And therefore we've built a spreadsheet that kind of takes those into account. So the strategic objectives that we identified in the previous step, we're going to take a look at how important that objective is, how well we're currently performing, and how easy or difficult it is to improve, and that will give us a suggested weighting. Let's take a look. So if we take an example of an objective, let's say we're going to take a look at profitable growth, F1, and we're going to ask ourselves, what is the impact of this objective, profitable growth, on the overall organization's success? And we're going to just give it a high, medium, or low. So in this example, we'll suggest that it's low from the drop-down list that's available to you. The next question is, how important is this objective, how well are we currently performing on this objective? And we're going to use sort of a grade school weighting, which means A is as high as can be expected at this performance level. So that's meeting or exceeding customer requirements. C is acceptable, but there's room for improvement, or F, we're not meeting requirements. In this example, we'll choose a weighting of C. Then finally, we're going to ask ourselves, how easy is it to bring this objective up to an A performance level? And you're going to normalize what's hard, moderate, and easy, and you might even assign a head count or dollar value to it. But the concept is hard is the most difficult of projects. Maybe 5 or 10% of your projects fall in this range, where they require additional time, resources, and a very focused effort. Moderate means chances are it can be performed with just some minor adjustments to existing budgets and resources. And easy means it can be solved within the current plan and budget. In this case, we'll say moderate. And the software has calculated the relative importance of this to be low. Now, this may get changed as we score the rest of these strategic objectives and we get their priorities. So in the completed spreadsheet, the way that we've set it up is it will give you about 30% of your objectives as a high weighting, about 30% as a medium, and 40% as a low, as it takes a look at multiplying importance times performance times difficulty. And you'll see that objective that before was a low has moved up to a medium as we've begun taking a look at other objectives. Now, it's important to note that this high, medium, and low is just the beginning of the conversation that your leadership team needs to have. What they then need to do is discuss the relative weightings, and the leadership team needs to build their own weighting. And we're going to use those guidelines that we brought forward to you in slide 4, about the 4 sort of guiding principles, and combine that with their own beliefs. The percentage scores across all the objectives will add up to 100%. So that's how it is we come up with the weighting. The weighting is going to be used in the next step, where we're going to bring forward the work you've done so far. So those strategic objectives and weightings will be brought forward from the weightings strategic weight tab. And across the top, we'll see the risk groupings and categories, which are brought forward from the choices you made in step 1 and entered in on the control tab. But we'll walk through those steps in the next webinar.